I'm not your average college graduate, I'm a maverick, and right now with me, it's simply hazardous. I want some other drive the next man crazy, shade, slave into him, cheek and rock Paisley, to turn your whole world upside down, with the almighty power of the word and sound. Found in other bound books, I treasure like a scripture, then read for pleasure as I
think this is a historic week in the battle against genetically engineered foods. Lawyers here in California are going to file papers to put a ballot initiative on the ballot for the November 2012 elections. This is Monsanto and Dow and DuPont and Syngenta and BASF and Dow's worst nightmare because they've known all along that if you ever gave consumers the choice to eat genetically engineered foods, you'd get the same result that they've seen in the European Union. You'd get rejection. It's falling on your shoulders to restore the right of choice of Americans and people all over the world. We've done polling across the state in the last month or two. 80 to 85% of Californians support mandatory labeling of genetically engineered foods. U.S. Farmers and Ranchers Alliance. That's the new front group for Monsanto and corporate agribusiness. I do believe we can win this battle. The first stage is each of us here need to recruit 5 more people to collect petition signatures starting the first week of December. Please sign up at the table, but keep in mind that each one of us here today has got to find 5 others. People all over the world are going to draw inspiration from the fact that it was in California the people drew that line in the sand and said, we're not going to let you dictate to us anymore whether we eat genetically engineered foods or not.
I'd been studying genetically engineered food stuff for quite a while, like 6, 7, 8 years, and getting increasingly depressed. So much so that last year this time I was actually pretty catatonic about it. Here we are, all these people alone with this knowledge that we have, and there's nowhere to go with it. I mean, what do you do with this? You sign another online petition. You sign this. You whine about it on Facebook. You talk about it with your friends. Maybe you show your friends the future of food, and then you become kind of like this multi-level marketing person to them, where the minute you walk up, they kind of walk away because they don't want to hear about GMOs anymore. I was literally in this gorgeous city, lying in a hotel bed at about 6:37 in the morning, kind of in that hover state, and kaboomy bunga, it hit me. That it was my job for the next whatever to try as best I could to get an initiative on the ballot so that people could vote about getting genetically engineered foods labeled. I took about 6 weeks and I learned how to do an initiative, and I made a plan, you know, I did like all this stuff. I found a friend to help me get a website put up, and on March 10th I came out, and even though it was a crazy idea and I would have people look at me like this and sure, everybody said no at first. You don't have any experience. You don't know what you're doing. You're a grandmother. They didn't know I was also a business person. I'd been a farmer, I'd been a midwife, I'd been a lot of other things, but I pushed the grandma thing because I want people to know the power of one person, okay? One person making a decision. I started making phone calls, I started writing comments on Facebook at every non-GMO page I could find. You know, I friended everybody that had a non-GMO anything on it. Pretty soon I started having what I called seed meetings, and we had meetings of 5 or 6 or 8 or 15 people, and those folks started organizing their communities. They started showing films, the future of food, the world according to Monsanto. There is a new chili pepper movie out, you know, Farmageddon, all those things. They started sitting in front of grocery stores, finding other people who, the minute they thought that there's something that we could do, their eyes would start lighting up. They would say, yeah, I'll help, I'll get involved, I'll become a part of this. And pretty soon it started building and building. Then the Institute for Responsible Technology came on board. Organic Consumer Association was always supportive. I've been to Quincy. We have a very active group in Modesto. We have groups in Fresno. We have a group in Bakersfield. We have people in Riverside, in San Diego, Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo. People all over the state are lighting up, and they're organizing their communities. Right now we're starting to focus on the signature gathering. Organizations are coming now. You know, we've got other organizations. We've got large folks with businesses that are coming on board that have organized with professionals. So this takes a universe. It doesn't just take a village. It's going to take a universe to get this going, a whole world, and we're creating it here, you guys. So my message to everybody is if one obnoxious Italian grandma from Chico can do something and spark other people, just think what you can do in your communities too.
90 minutes from here is a town called Winters, and it's an agricultural farming town. I was out actually in the garden one day, and I'm listening to a talk show. They were going to take a fish and insert the DNA of the fish into the orange tree to preserve the orange crop from freezing during frost seasons in the winter. That was the summer of '96. In September, there was this staunch, raunch, awful smell permeating the air in the whole area. Neighbors complained, people complained. They were actually doing an experiment. On the morning of September 26, I wake up, the lower half of my body is completely numb. I'm numb in spots in my face, I'm numb part of my arms, a little bit of my stomach. And I actually heard my body buzz. Zzz. I also had gastrointestinal issues. Interestingly enough, a lot of the townspeople had the same symptoms that I did, and more. A year later, to the day, I woke up and I couldn't breathe this time. I was gasping for air. I talked like The Exorcist. Doctor gave me a diagnosis. After x-rays, my lungs were completely white. And you can see it would look like smoke. He diagnosed me with chemical pneumonia from pesticides. Well, in 2004, when I read Seeds of Deception, I learned that these pesticides were really GMO pesticides. Every single thing I read in this book correlated to what happened to me politically, economically, health-wise, everything. I contacted the Department of Agriculture, so they came out, they took swabs off all the windows of the house, the cars, even tree leaves, and they found residue that was over the limit, like there has to be a limit when there's poison floating through the air. The difference I made in that community was that they had to notify people 24 hours in advance of their experiments. I healed up after I could talk again, and I was out of there. I wasn't going to put up with that anymore. So the moral of the story is, if something's wrong, ask questions. What happened? What did I eat? What did I breathe? Something.
In learning about the bees and working with the bees, I see that the GMO issue is part of an environmental attack that is being waged on bees around the world, but especially in our country. They're putting this pollen out that's absolutely void of nutrition for the bees because there's no protein in the modified pollen. Pollen is to make things fertile and grow, and GMO doesn't make seeds. Flowers make the nectar to get the bees to come to the flower so they can spread their pollen around. And then the bees use the pollen to grow, and it breaks that cycle. If GMO pollen is junk food for bees, how could the whole plant be any good for us humans if we are what we eat and we're getting these genetics into ourselves? I don't want to be a GMO.
Here we go, show me your strength. Let me hear you
posting things to Facebook and educating your friends and put them in touch with this campaign. Ask them to pledge to gather at least 100 signatures.
Become educated and inform yourself so that you can also inform others. Just keep getting the word out. You're doing great just being here.
We have the power. Just know you have a power as the consumer. Just know that.
Learn what's a GMO.
The Institute for Responsible Technology, Jeffrey Smith was training people to be speakers. So you can become a speaker and train online and go in your community, in your groups, and speak about it.
foodorfarmer.wordpress.com, and I'm going to be following this movement. I think it's very important that we don't have genetically modified organisms in our food. I think the most important thing to stay focused on is that we need labeling. We have the right to choose.
the GMOs are not divinely ordained, and that we eat 3 times a day, and that we need to know what we're eating, and we need to have that agency and that power that we were born with.
I want to remind everybody of your Bible stories. David slew Goliath. We can do it. Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Now, if we're really going to recruit 5,000 people, you're going to have to use your voice a lot louder than that. Keep singing. Here we go. Show me your strength. Let me hear you sound. Nice. Be the change you want to see around. Keep going.